Meanwhile, we've been talking to you both here on the air and on Facebook, for example. Earlier in the week, Dylan Davis from the Battle Creek Inquirer was here talking about his story that asked folks, what do you want to see come here after the closing announcement from Macy's and Wendy's and Lone Star and Don Pablo's and all these things that are leaving? What do you want to have come here? And so that sparked a further discussion here on the air, and some of you were kind enough to call, and a couple of you said, we want to see more local things, and those comments popped up, too, on social media as well. And in that regard, there is an organization in town with whom we've spoken on a few occasions that actually helps folks take their entrepreneurial idea and make it a reality. It's the Generation E Institute, and Cheryl Peters and Amanda Lankerd are here from there to talk about how that all works. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here today. You know, it is interesting because we didn't put any boundaries on the question, what do you want to see come here? And, you know, sometimes it's fun to just let those ideas fly. And I presume that when that happens, some ideas are practical, some are not, but that's okay. How do you encourage folks who have ideas to think about them? Do you tell them, wait now, make sure it's practical, or make sure it's within a certain budget, or how do you do that?
Well, let me start out by saying that an entrepreneur has a dream.
Yeah.
And that dream needs to be encouraged. And it's based, we hope, it's always based on an interest and a talent and a skill of which they have something that they can grow with and to grow that business. So to say we want to have them look for the opportunity, though. And generally, as we do with all people, is there a problem? You know, and is your interest area in that area to solve that problem? Because that's where the opportunity comes from. So when you look at it from that problem solving, it's real hard to go out and say, you know, we need an entrepreneur who does such and such. Because if it's not their dream, that's not going to happen.
So there has to be some kind of fire within to keep them going, I think is what you're saying. And when you say solve a problem or identify a problem, you know, you've got to look at the broad scope of the world and say what's not being done, or there's a problem, how do we solve that, and then come up with the idea to do that is what you mean.
What's missing?
Interesting.
You know, what's missing? You know, if there's a problem, if you're talking about that leads to opportunity, just looking at the businesses that we have today in technology, you know, looking to solve an issue. Around locally, we hear a lot of people talking about what's missing in restaurants or, you know, in services. And with the change of buying habits, we have to look at those things too, because so many people are purchasing on the internet. Is that what makes the retail outlets a little harder? So you have to look at those things.
And so this constitutes, I suppose, a litmus test that should help figure out whether your idea is valid or not. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we have a process that we take all of our entrepreneurs through. Initially, we go through a business model canvas, and that will walk the entrepreneur through really thinking more deeply about who are your customers, what value do you bring to them, how are you going to get the word out about your business, what are some key activities, who are the partners that you need to have around the table with you, and things like that. So it's one thing to be able to solve a problem, but if you haven't done research and you don't know your market, or the market can't bear, you know, what you're trying to offer, then, you know, it's a complicated equation. Well,
and for a lot of us, we don't know how to begin to think about that, and that's what Generation E Institute helps do, and we'll continue in that thought coming up shortly. 95.3 WBCK. Cheryl Peters and Amanda Lankerd are here from the Generation E Institute. It's a continuation of conversations we've had this week with others and you about what you want to see come to town, and the whole idea that a local idea could end up being a local business, and Generation E Institute helps with that. You know, when I think about this, I was accused once in my life by a fellow I used to work with who said, well, you're not entrepreneurial. You don't think that way. And all these years later, it still sticks in my craw. But the point is, some of us think more clearly that way than others. I have another friend who likes to dream. So she dreams up these ideas about businesses and things, but it's not necessarily rooted in practicality. What if you meet somebody like that? How do you bring them into the zone to start thinking about this both with dreams and with practicality?
Well, I think that when you have somebody who's the idea person, they have that idea, and you want them to explore it. You want them to talk about it, but if it doesn't have any reality to it or practicality, a demand for it, or maybe they don't even have the ability to put it together. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what we do with people, is to take them through that process, as Amanda said, and take a good look at it, not to squelch their dream. We don't have the right to do that to anybody.
Right.
And we don't want to do that. But what we do want to do is have it be so that they do not have more risks than they have rewards.
That's an interesting thought. So you do meet people who might have an idea and don't quite know how to carry it through. And that's part of what you do. How do you do that?
We meet people in various stages. Yeah. We meet people that have an idea, they think they might wanna, but they're not sure how. We have people that we work with that have formed their business, have just, signed the ink on the paper for their LLC, and they're like, oh, I think I might need some help. And then we have businesses that we work with that have been in business for 6 months, a year, and they say, oh, yep, I think I need some help. I can't do it alone. And they come into our office, and depending on their needs, we try to partner them with individuals that have areas of expertise that they lack or that they need more of. We also have a network of service providers as well as partners that we work with that can help these entrepreneurs grow.
So somebody who might have a super practical viewpoint could end up meeting somebody who has the dreamer side and the reverse, right?
Correct.
Absolutely.
And then they help carry that through. Is that true? Mm-hmm. And when you say they are mentored or they meet with people who have that perspective, is that somebody then that they start paying and take under contract? I mean, hire them? How does that work?
Well, right now we are in the process of developing a more formal mentoring program, and that's where we would get people from the community, business owners, people that are working in business, and pair them with an entrepreneur for probably a 6 or a 12-month period. It would be at no cost to the entrepreneur.
Wow.
And it would be a volunteer role that the mentor would provide.
And that mentor has a passion for this thing. Maybe they've gone through it themselves.
Yeah, they have a passion for business and helping people, and it's giving back to the community.
When we come back in a minute, we'll talk about the money part. I know people like this, too. They have lots of ideas, but maybe the bank account is not, pardon me, in line with what some of those ideas are. You probably meet folks like that, too. We'll talk about that in just a minute on 95.3 WBCK. Cheryl and Amanda are here from the Generation E Institute. We're talking about getting an idea for a business off the ground, and they do that right here in Battle Creek all the time by mentoring folks and helping them through the process. And I guess the big question is the money question now. There are people out there with ideas, and they're sitting there listening to this saying, yeah, but I don't have the money to do this. You probably hear that a lot.
We do. We hear people come in, they have ideas, but the thing that we have to remember for small businesses is that oftentimes they don't need a whole lot of money. They are not looking for $100,000 or whatever. They maybe need under 10 to get them going. And so one of the things that we have been working with other community members as part of the committees through the BC Vision process is looking at how do we how do we come up with those microloan businesses? And looking at it not from the standpoint of, do you have a 3-year projection, or these are just startups, and they want to grow, but they need that assistance, and so they need that boost.
And is that a typical loan bank relationship?
It would be designed such, yes,
Okay.
with all of the legal agreements, because if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to follow all those rules that everybody else follows and learn that. But you may be coming to the table with a little higher risk, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to make it.
It's interesting, that microloan thing. You hear about that in, developing countries and things where you can contribute to a microloan for a woman-owned business in North Africa or something where the opportunities are less. Are there microloan grants that go on here?
The word grant is...
yeah, I know. It sounds like I'm
that
giving...
That implies you don't pay it back.
Right.
And so they're very few.
Okay.
Some are for very specific... different groups that would need that, and if it's needed, sometimes they step up and have some of the grants that are available to perhaps some veterans or women, minority groups. But we really want people to think not in that grant base, but if they're going to be in a business that they have to pay back.
The reality is you're going to have bills to pay.
Yes, you have bills and you have to be responsible.
Mm-hmm. So the microloan part, that is to say not a grant, is part of this process. And as you say, maybe it's not a huge amount of money, but it's enough to get things rolling.
Right. And we're really working to encourage that, to have the resources to be able to do that in our community.
That's very interesting. So part 2 of what you do is connect people with the right resources as they go along in this process. Now, an average person might end up going and hiring a consultant or a lawyer, various professionals. You have connections in those areas, right?
We do. It's not often that we find an entrepreneur that is passionate about what they want to do and also have the skills of an attorney, the skills of an accountant, of a marketing person. So we try to partner them with individuals that have those skill sets, because we know that entrepreneurs can't do it alone, and you need that expertise in order to help you become successful. So we have a network of service providers that we can partner with them that offer free or reduced cost services.
That's incredible. Now, at what point do you make that connection? You talked about signing on the line and creating your LLC. I mean, is that something that those folks help with, or is that after that?
It would probably be after that.
Okay.
We really want to make sure that we have all of their ducks in a row before we refer them out. But it also depends on the client. If we have somebody that's been in business for a little while and is having some intellectual property challenges, then we would want to connect them to an intellectual property attorney in order to get that taken care of.
It's probably appropriate to talk just for a minute here about the idea of creating a business from an idea that one has is different than buying into a franchise or something and opening up a local franchise of a business, right? It's different than that.
Well, I think that it is very different, because when you're starting a business from ground zero, it's your idea, and you're going through all of those parts to figure out location, product, supply, whatever it might be, to a franchise who is going to say, this is the way it's done. We have the business plan, and this is what you're going to do. And they guide them through that. They put them through lots of great training, but it's a different concept.
And very often they have to absolutely follow that plan, don't they, in a franchise situation?
Yeah, each franchise has specific requirements. So they're looking at location, they're looking at surrounding competition, they're looking at the median household income, they're looking at education levels. And if it doesn't meet their requirements, they won't even give the community a second glance.
That's interesting. So as we were dreaming on the air the other day about IKEA and P.F. Chang's and those places, there's probably a good chance those places have already considered this area, isn't there?
They could. And they could have looked at it and said that it doesn't meet the demographics that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. So it's up to us sometimes to figure that out and take up that difference. And the Generation E Institute, as you can hear, is ready to help folks with those ideas. So folks can just call up and say, I have this idea. What do I do next?
Yes, they certainly can.
Okay.
And it can be in any shape or form. I have a lot of people that say, well, what do I need to bring? You don't have to bring anything.
Just bring your idea.
Just bring your idea and let's have a conversation.
All right.
So they can call our phone number at 269-441-1238, or they can visit us on our website at genei.org.
genei.org or 441-1238. All right. We'll stay in touch. Let's see what comes of this. If some of the folks who talked to us on the air earlier this week really are serious, you should be getting a phone call, I would think.
Good. Look forward to it.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheryl and Amanda, thank you very much from the Generation E Institute.